In the ruthless three-way war for box office dominance this July, Fantastic Four wasn't just the underdog, it was the punchline. Going up against the unstoppable Jurassic World machine and James Gunn's overhyped Superman, Marvel's latest reboot looked like it was doomed before the first trailer even dropped. Critics had sharpened their knives, fan forums were flooded with leaks and outrage, and let's be honest, most people were ready to toss this film into the MCU's growing pile of forgettable flops. Between rumors of chaotic reshoots, clumsy rewrites, and endless political pandering, Fantastic Four had every sign of a studio disaster in the making. Oh, and Pedro Pascal was front and center, which for some people was the final red flag. Let's just say the hype wasn't exactly glowing. So imagine my surprise when I walked out of the theater thinking, wait a minute, was that actually good? Because here's the thing, and I don't say this lightly, Fantastic Four, 2025, is shockingly watchable. It's not a cinematic revolution. It won't rescue the MCU from the creative grave it's dug itself into. But against all expectations, it's a movie with heart, charm, and just enough style to make you care again. In an era where superhero fatigue has turned once epic franchises into hollow cash grabs, this film somehow works. But before you get too excited, let's talk about how Marvel accidentally pulled off their best film in years, and why no one saw it coming. To understand just how Fantastic Four managed to catch everyone off guard, you have to look at the state of Marvel leading up to its release. Because let's be honest, this wasn't just a studio with a couple of weak entries. This was a franchise in freefall, desperately clinging to the scraps of its former glory. Not that long ago, the Marvel Cinematic Universe was untouchable. It was the undisputed king of pop culture, raking in billions with each release and dominating the internet with fan theories and wild speculation. But somewhere between Endgame and now, the magic vanished. What used to feel like a carefully constructed, emotionally charged universe has started to resemble a bloated, directionless content machine. The warning signs were hard to miss. 2 theatrical releases earlier this year tanked with critics and underperformed at the box office. Not just mid-tier flops either, we're talking headline-grabbing disasters. Fans walked in with hope and walked out either confused, disappointed, or completely indifferent. That's not just a bad film, that's a branding crisis. So here's the twist nobody expected. Fantastic Four walks into the ring with 1,000 strikes against it, and somehow still lands a clean hit. From the opening minutes, there's a strange sense that something feels different. Not radically groundbreaking. Not mind-blowing. But refreshing, like someone at Marvel finally remembered how to make a movie that feels like, well, a movie. Let's not get carried away. This isn't the next Dark Knight or Infinity War. It's not going to redefine the genre or reignite the Marvel fandom overnight. But for the first time in what feels like years, audiences weren't rolling their eyes or checking their watches halfway through. Instead, they were sitting up, actually paying attention. Because here's the thing, Fantastic Four doesn't try to be bigger than it needs to be. It doesn't lean on multiverse gimmicks, nor does it try to juggle 6 different subplots at once. It's surprisingly tight, and the simplicity works in its favor. The film knows what story it wants to tell and more importantly, it knows how to tell it. The characters? Likeable. Human. Believable. Within the first act, the 4 leads establish a dynamic that feels lived in without relying on tired origin tropes or forced exposition dumps. The chemistry is there, not perfect, but enough to care. Scenes with his presence. And let's address the elephant in the room, Pedro Pascal. Say what you want about how often he's been cast lately, but this role fits him. His performance isn't overacted or showy. It's grounded. He brings a quiet intensity to Reed that makes him feel like a man constantly calculating, constantly trying to find the least worst option in impossible situations. And yes, somehow even he makes the line, "Galactus wants my unborn child," land with weight. But most shocking of all? The movie has heart. Real, emotional weight. There are scenes, especially between Reed and Sue, that feel deeply personal. Not everything is about saving the world. Sometimes, it's just about saving each other. There's a level of emotional maturity here that's been sorely missing in recent Marvel entries, where character moments were treated like speed bumps on the way to the next CGI explosion. Of course, the film isn't without its flaws, and we'll get to those. But before diving into what didn't work, it's worth emphasizing, Fantastic Four succeeds where most recent superhero movies have failed. It earns your interest. It builds tension. It makes you care about people, not just powers. And considering the storm of doubt that hovered over this film before its release, that's not just a win. That's a minor miracle. The movie opens on an alternate Earth, sleek, retro-futuristic, and visually striking. The Fantastic Four are already established heroes. No long-winded origin story. Just a short, sharp intro that brings us up to speed. They got their powers from space, now they're global icons. But peace doesn't last. The Silver Surfer arrives without warning, delivering a grim message: Earth has been marked. Galactus, a cosmic world eater, is coming. And he's not just hungry. He wants something specific: Sue Storm's unborn child. The team launches a desperate mission into space to intercept him. The plan? Negotiate or fight. Neither works. Galactus gives them a cruel ultimatum: hand over the baby, or he devours Earth. They flee. Barely. Back on Earth, Reed Richards does something baffling. He tells the public everything. Panic spreads. Trust collapses. The world turns on its heroes. Now, with time running out and the planet turning against them, the team scrambles for a solution. Hide the Earth? Sacrifice one of their own? Or place their hope in a mysterious alien with a shifting allegiance? The clock is ticking. Galactus is coming. Small Blue Diamond Section 5, Reed's mistake and public fallout. You'd think that after escaping a cosmic death god, the smartest man on Earth would play it safe. But no, Reed Richards does the unthinkable. He tells the entire planet exactly what happened. Every detail. Galactus is coming, and oh yeah, he wants our baby. The reaction? Chaos. World leaders panic. Civilians riot. Media explodes with blame, fear, and outrage. The Fantastic Four, once loved, are now public enemy number one. People don't see heroes anymore, they see the reason Earth is on death row. Even within the team, trust starts to fray. Why would Reed reveal everything? Was it guilt? Strategy? Or just a catastrophic misread of human nature? Before this movie dropped, it felt like half the internet had already reviewed it and hated it. Rumors were flying: Sue Storm would be the unstoppable girl boss dominating every scene, male characters would be sidelined or humiliated, and the finale would be little more than political posturing disguised as a superhero climax. None of that happened. The reality? Fantastic Four plays it straight. It doesn't lean into culture war bait or try to deliver some forced message. Sue Storm isn't some overpowered icon trying to prove a point, she's a grounded, maternal presence. She's strong, yes, but not at anyone's expense. She supports the team, she makes decisions. But she's not the sole savior of the movie. Reed Richards isn't nerfed. He leads with science, strategy, and responsibility. Pascal plays him with intelligence and restraint, and he's never overshadowed or written off. The script respects him. Johnny Storm? Surprisingly well written. Less hot-headed punk, more underestimated genius. He even makes a critical discovery about the Silver Surfer, something the trailers never hinted at. The team dynamic is what matters. Nobody's fighting for the spotlight. Everyone contributes. Everyone has agency. That's what makes it work. And if anything, Fantastic Four does what Marvel's forgotten lately: it tells a team story, not a lecture. Even the dreaded Marvel humor is dialed way down. Jokes exist, sure, but they land when they should, not at the cost of tension or tone. So all those loud complaints before the release? They didn't just miss the mark. They misrepresented the film entirely. And in a strange twist, that might have helped. Because when audiences came in expecting another hollow, preachy disaster and instead got a focused, balanced story, the film didn't just exceed expectations. It shattered them. If there was one thing people were tired of before this movie hit screens, it was Pedro Pascal. Not because he's untalented, far from it. But because, for a while, it felt like he was everywhere. From The Mandalorian to The Last of Us to internet memes and award shows, he wasn't just an actor, he was a brand. And when Marvel announced he'd be playing Reed Richards, the internet groaned in unison. Another forced casting? Another studio move chasing clout instead of chemistry? But here's the surprise, he nailed it. Pascal's Reed isn't flashy or smug. He's not played as a misunderstood genius or a self-loathing wreck. He's calm, collected, driven, but haunted by the weight of every decision. He's a man who sees 10 steps ahead and still isn't sure he's doing the right thing. And unlike so many other MCU leads lately, he doesn't deflect emotion with jokes. He feels things, and we believe it. His relationship with Sue Storm is a standout. There's warmth. There's friction. There's actual emotional intimacy, something we haven't seen in a Marvel film since, well, ever. They don't just fight side by side. They talk. They care. It's weirdly refreshing to see a couple written like actual adults. And perhaps most importantly, Pascal isn't overshadowed. For all the fear-mongering about Sue being the centerpiece or Johnny stealing the spotlight, it's Reed who drives the narrative. He makes the big calls. He takes the biggest risks. He even takes the blame when everything goes wrong. It's a quiet performance, not a showy one. But that's exactly what the film needed and exactly what Pascal delivered. So whether you walked in expecting yet another Hollywood overuse case or just weren't convinced he could carry the role, by the end, it's hard not to admit it. One of the biggest surprises in Fantastic Four isn't the visual effects, the villains, or the plot twists, it's the emotion. Yeah, emotion, the thing Marvel has been allergic to for years. Because somewhere between multiverse portals and Skybeam finales, the MCU forgot how to tell stories about people. Not just quippy heroes or memeable sidekicks, but actual human beings with stakes, relationships, and personal conflicts. Fantastic Four brings that back. At the center of the film is something shockingly rare for a modern superhero movie, a married couple who actually love each other. Reed and Sue aren't just teammates. They're partners in science, in life, and soon, in parenthood. The looming birth of their child isn't just a background detail. It drives every decision, every sacrifice, every moment of tension between them. And that right there? That's what gives the film its weight. When Galactus demands their unborn son, it's not some abstract save-the-world scenario. It's personal. The emotional stakes are intimate, grounded, and terrifying. Suddenly, we're not watching superheroes trying to stop another space god. We're watching two parents trying to protect their family from something unstoppable. It's wild how fresh that feels in a universe that used to be built on character. There's actual affection here, warmth, vulnerability, fear. These characters aren't just reciting plot points. They're reacting like real people, and that makes the stakes feel real. Even the team dynamic reflects that emotional core. It's not just banter in big action scenes. There's loyalty, frustration, moments of doubt, but also deep respect. Nobody's trying to outshine the others. They move like a unit, imperfect, but united. And maybe that's why this movie lands differently. It's not about saving timelines or introducing Phase 27. It's about protecting the people you love. It's about the terrifying pressure of responsibility, and what you're willing to risk for the ones who count on you. Fantastic Four doesn't just revive these characters. It restores something Marvel's been missing for years, a human core. A beating heart beneath the spectacle. And weirdly enough, in a genre obsessed with gods, aliens, and digital chaos, that heart is the most revolutionary thing of all. As much as Fantastic Four gets right, it's far from perfect. And the biggest cracks in its foundation? The villains. Or more specifically, the potential they waste. Let's start with the Silver Surfer. Visually? Stunning. Conceptually? Intriguing. But narratively? Underused. She in this version, shows up with the weight of the cosmos behind her, and then mostly vanishes into the background. We're told she's conflicted. That there's more to her than the role of Galactus Herald. But we're never really shown that depth. No flashbacks. No real character arc. Just a handful of cryptic lines, a moment of hesitation, and a sudden heel turn that feels unearned. You can feel that there was more written for her, probably filmed, maybe even fully rendered. But somewhere along the line, it got chopped. What we're left with is a hollow version of what could have been a compelling, tragic figure. A liquid metal enigma without the time to breathe. Then there's Galactus himself. Let's be clear, he looks awesome. Towering, ancient, alien. Ralph Inessen's deep, rabble-filled voice gives him real presence. You believe this is a cosmic force that eats planets. But once the initial impact wears off, you start realizing, he doesn't actually do much. He's the threat, sure. But not the character. Why is he doing this? Why does he want the baby? How does that even work? Is the kid supposed to become his successor? A vessel? A battery? The film never says. And worse, it doesn't seem to care that it never says. You're just expected to go along with it. That lack of explanation turns what could have been an emotionally resonant, morally complex villain into a big hungry space dude. Which is fine. But also, a little disappointing. And then there's the final act, the place where all this is supposed to come together. It doesn't fall apart, exactly. But it feels like it's missing something. Big moments happen fast. Emotional beats don't fully land. The Silver Surfer's redemption arc skips ahead. Galactus's plan goes from terrifying to vague. It's not messy, just rushed. Which begs the question, was there a longer cut? Because everything about the final act screams studio intervention. Scenes feel trimmed. Transitions are abrupt. Plot points are resolved a little too easily. It's not bad, just safe. And when a film builds this much emotional and cosmic tension, playing it safe feels like a letdown. But we're never really shown that depth. No flashbacks. No real character arc. Just a handful of cryptic lines, a moment of hesitation, and a sudden heel turn that feels unearned. You can feel that there was more written for her, probably filmed, maybe even fully rendered. But somewhere along the line, it got chopped. What we're left with is a hollow version of what could have been a compelling, tragic figure. A liquid metal enigma without the time to breathe. Then there's Galactus himself. Let's be clear, he looks awesome. towering, ancient, alien. Ralph Inessen's deep, rabble-filled voice gives him real presence. You believe this is a cosmic force that eats planets. But once the initial impact wears off, you start realizing he doesn't actually do much. He's the threat, sure. But not the character. Why is he doing this? Why does he want the baby? How does that even work? Is the kid supposed to become his successor? A vessel? A battery? The film never says. And worse, it doesn't seem to care that it never says. You're just expected to go along with it. That lack of explanation turns what could have been an emotionally resonant, morally complex villain into a big hungry space dude. Which is fine. But also, a little disappointing. And then there's the final act, the place where all this is supposed to come together. It doesn't fall apart, exactly. But it feels like it's missing something. Big moments happen fast. Emotional beats don't fully land. The Silver Surfer's redemption arc skips ahead. Galactus's plan goes from terrifying to vague. It's not messy, just rushed. Which begs the question, was there a longer cut? It's telling that the worst thing you can say about this film isn't what's in it, but what's missing. We don't hate these villains. We just wish we knew them better. We don't reject the climax. We just wish it hit harder. Fantastic Four delivers a story worth watching, but with just a little more time, it could have delivered one worth remembering. So here we are. Fantastic Four isn't a game changer. It doesn't reinvent superheroes. It doesn't fix Marvel's bigger problems. But maybe, just maybe, that's why it works. In a cinematic universe drowning in convoluted timelines, bloated crossovers, and CGI-heavy nothingness, this film does something shockingly rare. It tells a focused, human story. No multiverse. No endless cameos. No setup for 5 future spin-offs. Just a beginning, a middle, and an end powered by characters you can actually care about. Yes, it has issues. The villains are underdeveloped. The third act feels edited with a machete. And you can sense that a longer, more emotionally satisfying version might be buried in a vault somewhere. But here's the thing. You still care. You care when Reed makes the wrong call. You care when Sue fights for her unborn child. You care when the team is backed into a corner and has to choose between saving Earth or protecting each other. And somehow, that emotional connection makes all the difference. Pedro Pascal delivers a grounded, thoughtful Reed Richards. Sue Storm brings calm strength without stealing the spotlight. Johnny and Ben are more than comic relief. The team feels like a team flawed, real, and worth rooting for. And it's crazy that in 2025, the most revolutionary thing a superhero film can do is be emotionally grounded and self-contained. But here we are. Fantastic Four isn't perfect. A decade ago, it might have landed as pretty good. But today? In the ashes of Marvel's recent misfires and endless content fatigue? It feels like a breath of fresh air and maybe even a small win. So no, this movie won't save the MCU. But it might have just reminded Marvel and audiences of what used to make superhero films special in the first place. And in a year full of flops, fake-outs, and forced nostalgia? That's more than enough.